of Townsville is on fire!
Normally I try not to be that political with these videos. Normally I haven't had a reason to, but this broke me.
The White House withdrawing troops from a key part of Syria.
As U.S. forces move out, Syrian forces are moving in a bid to stop the Turkish onslaught.
Good luck getting anybody to help America in the future with radical Islam.
Sometimes you have to let them fight. It's like two kids in a lot. You gotta let them fight and then you pull them apart.
Trump sold the Kurds out. Not the military, not the politicians, not even America. The current situation right now with Turkey is the fault of one single man who made a split-second decision, and now he's trying to put that genie right back into the bottle. But it's too late now. Learning history is always good, because it brings context to situations, broadens our worldview, and also maybe might give some insight into why Turkey wanted American troops away from the border, and you shouldn't listen to them. Maybe you're thinking, we should have all of our troops out of the Middle East. Why do people want out of Afghanistan, but then are mad at Trump for pulling troops away from Turkey's border? You can believe that American troops shouldn't be involved in foreign wars, and also, if troops are already involved in foreign wars, you bring them home in a smooth, orderly fashion that doesn't spiral the situation. As for Syria, America has only deployed 1,000 troops. But the reason troops are still there is because of Turkey. Ever since the war began, Turkey has been eyeing the newly semi-autonomous Kurds in western Kurdistan, or eastern Syria. But they didn't move troops in because they feared even an accidental attack on any one of those few American troops could cause an international incident or further escalation. For the Americans, it was literally a paper wall with minimum commitment. Turkey has now invaded northern Syria, capturing towns, killing prominent Kurd officials, and it's feared this escalation might create 300,000 new refugees. Whether you're a liberal, conservative, still think Teddy Roosevelt should come back as a zombie for a third term, it doesn't matter. This one decision will have massive consequences.
Alright, fine. Yeah, okay, just go. But if you could just do me a little favor before you leave, if you could just squish me. That would be great, because when they find out I'm as good as dead.
So let's talk about the history between Turkey and the Kurds, and why it makes a lot of sense why this would happen. The Kurds are incredibly diverse in their politics, their language, and even religion. Some are communists, some are nationalists, some are Islamists. Some want a full Kurdistan state, and others just want better self-rule in their own country. But the one thing that unites them is that they're all Kurds, never ruling a nation of their own in the modern day, with some thanks to Britain and France from that classic Sykes-Picot Agreement, Iran, and yes, Turkey. After World War I, the Ottoman Empire collapsed. The new state of Turkey was officially declared with the same modern borders that it has today. And those borders just so happen to have many non-Turks inside. As what always happens when a state prefers one single group, oppression occurs. Greeks and non-Turks were either exchanged out or had been genocided out of Turkey's borders. But one major minority remained, the Kurds, making up 20% of Turkey's population, even today. Turkey wanted to modernize and secularize, brought in the Latin alphabet, disbanded Sharia law, and at the same time wanted all people inside their borders to be Turk. The state began to suppress anything of Kurdish culture and way of life. Kurdish language was banned to be taught, and any mention of the notion of Kurdistan was punished. Kurdish regions were put under martial law until 1946, and throughout the 20th century, this just continued. Kurds to Turkey did not exist. They were mountain Turks. Yes, that was what Turkey actually called them. By the late 70s, many Kurds had enough. Rebellions and revolutionary guards had formed before, but in 1978, a Marxist Kurdish rebel group known as the Kurdistan Workers' Party, or PKK, was formed. They called for complete independence from Turkey and the creation of a Marxist Kurdish state. And this is where it all begins. By 1984, a guerrilla war had begun. The PKK called for a full rebellion against the state, and fighting began. Not only against the Turks, but Islamist Kurds and right-wingers as well. So sometimes Peshmerga Kurds team up with Turkey against the PKK, or Iraqi Kurdistan aids the Turks in northern Iraq to root out PKK members. That insurgency never ended. Even after the PKK's leader was captured, fighting has been going on in eastern Turkey ever since, with brief periods of peace for 40 years. Since 1984, 50,000 Kurds have been killed, mostly by Turkish military operations trying to take down the PKK. Since the 80s, Turkey has not really changed how it views the Kurds. The language isn't illegal anymore. The first Kurdish TV station was formed in 2008, oh boy, but at the same time the state has used the legalization of the Kurdish language to easily prosecute Kurdish leaders in their borders, restrict free speech, and any call for more Kurdish autonomy. Long story short, Turkey uses the fear of the PKK to shut down Kurdish identity and liberties, which just adds more fuel to the fire, a tale as old as time. While Turkey will say it's against the PKK, it's also against what the PKK stands for, Kurdish sovereignty. The conflict after brief periods of peace only grew worse in the last few years. 1, because of this guy, and 2, well, Syria imploded. By 2015, the war in Syria had escalated. Not only was there a fight now between rebels and Assad, but between the Kurds, Assad, and a brand new Islamic force. Well, you know who they are. The Kurds of Western Kurdistan, known as the Rojava, began carving up their own autonomous region, beating back both Assad and ISIS. These are the Kurds that the US sent troops in to help defend. But here's the thing, to Turkey, this is a threat. Rojava, while being separate from the PKK, still has inspirations from it, even aspiring the views of its old leader. The region promotes gender equality, and almost has a form of libertarian socialist anarchism. To Turkey, that is terrifying and infuriating. Right on its border is an autonomous Kurdish region with the same views as militants they've been fighting for 40 years, and they fear it will inspire others to do the same. That conflict has now spilled over. As the Kurds became a stronger power, Turkey started building up on the Syrian border. At least until, you know.
Sometimes you have to let them fight.
If you're confused to why Turkey seems so gung-ho to roll into Syria, or why after towns are shelled and Kurdish politicians are killed, Turks are dancing in the streets, it's because to them, they see Rojava in this independent Kurdish state as the same as PKK. And much like Russia, Turkey doesn't have a very delicate way of rooting out insurgents. They just go in, innocent casualties be damned. This is why understanding history is important. Comments like this,
In the midst of these ancient, sectarian, and tribal conflicts,
are the result of somebody with a limited worldview misunderstanding literally everything of the situation.
we've secured the oil and therefore a small number of U.S. troops will remain in the area.
As for the future, a new phase to the Syrian war and the paths we can go down are different than they were a month ago. I don't like predicting the future because plot twists happen all the time. Assad and the Kurds have allied together to fight against the invading Turks. Trump is trying to clean up his mistake by putting economic pressure on Turkey, and international condemnation has come across the board. But it's too late for that. In the grand scheme, who knows what the future holds for the region? Perhaps Syria and the Kurds simply beat back the Turks, and a truce is called. Maybe even this alliance makes negotiations for a more autonomous Kurdish Syria a legal possibility. Or maybe the war escalates. Turkey fully commits their large army, and an actual war between two Islamic states becomes a reality, plunging the region even more into chaos. Worst case scenario, I could easily see this expanding. Iraq is in chaos right now. Government forces gunning down protesters. Man, that sure sounds familiar. I wonder where we saw that before. Wouldn't that just blend these conflicts together nicely? What is certain right now is the Kurds will certainly not forget this. No matter if they're Rojava, Northern Iraq, or Peshmerga, Not having an official independent state has always thrown the Kurds under the bus, especially by the US, so this isn't anything new. Except those previous betrayals were in the span of years, the result of gradual geopolitical shifts, paying attention to a different region in the world. It was never so blatant in the span of a week, and this move of pulling troops out, even if it was a little bit, is really the closest to a slap in the face you can get. No matter your political views, whether we should be in the Middle East or not, just a small amount of American troops kept the peace, and their quick removal opened the floodgates, and innocent people are now dying. That is not how international relations should work. The future is now uncertain, but it will certainly be worse off because of one uninformed decision.
It's too early to me to be congratulated, but we've done a good job. We've saved a lot of lives.